Now we are going to discuss about K nearest neighbor or KNN algorithm of machine learning. It is also one of the simplest machine learning algorithm and it is based on supervised machine learning. Now this algorithm assumes the similarity between the new case, or we can say the data from the available cases, and put the new case into the category that is most similar to the available category. So that means it operates on new data set. Also, KNN algorithm can be used for regression, but mostly it is used in classification problems. KNN is also called a non-parametric algorithm. And why it is said so? Because it does not make any assumption on the underlying data. That means it do not make any assumption on the previous data which is there in the machine. It is also called lazy learner algorithm. And why it is said so? Because it do not learn from the training set immediately. Instead, it stored the data set at the time of classification and perform action on the data set. That means it perform action on the new data set which is actually given. It does not perform any option on the underlying data. KNN algorithm at the training phase just store the data set when it gets the new data and classifies the data into the category. So this is about the KNN algorithm, and next we are going to see that how does a KNN work, or what are the steps for this algorithm. So the very first step is that select the number or the K of the neighbors. The second step of the algorithm is that you have to calculate the Euclidean distance of the K number of neighbors. In step 3, you have to take the nearest neighbor as per the calculated distance. In step 4, you have to, among those neighbors which are there, count the number of data points in each category. In step 5, you have to assign the new data point for which of the neighbor or the number of neighbor is maximum. So here we can say that assign the data point, where the neighbor category or the number of neighbor is maximum, and lastly the model is ready. So these are the few steps which need to be done. Now let's say that this is a plotting which has been done. This is the x-axis and this is the y-axis, and here I am plotting several dots. So these are actually of category B, and this is actually of category A, these two included also, and this is the new data point. Now what happened will be Euclidean distance will be calculated. Let's say that these are the few neighbors which we have selected. Now you can see usually that this distance will be less as calculated to these two distances. That we can see by viewing, but what is the formula of the Euclidean distance which is implemented of, let's say, the distance between this A point and this particular B point. So that will be under root of x2 minus x1 whole square plus y2 minus y1 whole square. This will be calculated the distance, and when the distance will be calculated, then it will be checked with the category of the neighbor and which data point it will belong to. So obviously it will belong to this because the distance is less, and where the distance is less it belongs to that category only. That new data point will belong to that. And next we are going to see that what are the advantages and disadvantages of using KNN. So firstly let us come to the advantages. So in the advantages we have that it is simple to implement. Secondly, it is robust on the noisy data training also. And lastly, it can be more effective if the training data is large, so that more distances of the data point can be calculated. Now let us come to the disadvantages which are there. So the disadvantage is that you always need to determine the value of k, which may be complex sometime. And one of the disadvantages is that the computation cost is high because calculating the distance between the data points for all the training samples. So the computation cost can be high. Now here you can see that I have taken a few points only, but in the original data set there are n number of data and there is n number of features of those data also. So then the computation cost can be high for calculating the distances also. So by the end of this video we have discussed about the KNN, what is KNN and how does it works, the algorithm, and also how the distance is calculated of the Euclidean distance, and by calculating the Euclidean distance we get the nearest neighbor. And let's say that as 3 nearest neighbor in the category A and 2 nearest neighbor in the B. So it goes to those neighbors which are actually more in number, that means to the A category. And also we have seen the advantages and disadvantages of this algorithm. Next I will show you the implementation of KNN in a data set.